Don't expect anything from us until Christmas. Those were the words of Nico Batum after the home opening loss to Phoenix in late October. Well, here we are, Christmas. Did that take age well? Are the Clippers set up in the second half of the season to push forward and go for a top seed? Gonna be talking about it all and more on today's Locked On Clipmas Christmas Clippers.
Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You are locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I am your host, Darian Vaziri. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod, and of course, subscribe to my own YouTube channel known as Dime Dropper, where basketball content will be returning, starting with the Clippers game against Detroit. I'll be going live after that one, and of course, giving you a Locked On Clippers podcast, and of course, remember to subscribe to Locked On Clippers on YouTube and comment on today's pinned question because it's the fastest way to grow the show. And my question is simple to you: how do you feel about Nico Batum and Kawhi Leonard's quotes from earlier in the season? Now that we are here at Christmas, in addition to that, I'm going to be talking about some rising questions and some concerns that have risen over the last couple of days. And at the end, how I feel about what the Clippers should do going forward in terms of trade deadline stuff and just the approach for the second half of the season. But the two quotes that I mentioned at the top, let's start with Nico's. He said against the Suns, and a lot of fans didn't like it. I'm not going to lie, I wasn't a huge fan of hearing it because it was like late October. Christmas is in 2 months at that point. And it's like, so you're basically saying we're not going to care, we shouldn't expect to see much from the Clippers until Christmas? And he said that. But Nico Batum, for one, is the only player that has played every single game for the Clippers this season. The Clippers at this point now, and by the way, a happy holidays to you all listening, and a Merry Christmas. I'm enjoying that you're spending your Christmas listening to my voice and talking and listening to Clippers basketball because, of course, we love the Clippers. And there's no better Christmas present than a championship, or there's no better life present than a championship, right? That's much better than a Christmas present. And hopefully the Clippers give us that this upcoming year, but they stand at 19 and 15 right now, so 34 games in, and the only player to play all 34 games is Nico Batum. And Nico saying that, I didn't like it at the time. It felt to me like a lack of urgency. It felt like, we can't skip steps, can't wait. But let's look at just how it's aged. Clippers find themselves, as I said, 19 and 15. So not a terrible record, not a very good record. It's okay. But they find themselves 5 in the West, which if you had told me the Clippers were going to be 19 and 15, I'd say we'll be around 7th or 6th in the West. But 5th and only a couple of games out of 1st, well, that is better than I thought, and that is because of the way the West has just beaten up on each other this season. Teams are just exchanging blows, and everybody's very evenly matched. So the Clippers right now are only 2.5 games away from the number 1 seed. If we talking 3 seed, they're 2 games off of that, New Orleans. And with all the load management, all the injuries happening to various teams, it's very possible that these teams slip and lose games, and it's not the way it used to be where the Stars play basically every night, and you just got to hope that certain good teams lose. Because sometimes I'll be watching the standings back in the day, watching teams like the Spurs or the Warriors that were ahead of us, and they just would not lose. Like, you'd have to hope for somebody to get injured, which you don't ever hope for people to get injured. But for the Clippers to be 19 and 15 through 34 games, have had Kawhi Leonard play for literally 13 games, is such a luxury. To be in this position that they're still right within striking distance of getting not only a top 3 seed, but the number 1 seed even is not even out of question. So Nico Batum's take did age very well. Now, I do think he's a little bit lucky that this is just a unique year in which the West is just, everyone's beating up on each other. It's a very evenly matched conference with a lot of very good teams and not many great ones. Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, they are the key. Straight up, they're the keys. They need to stay healthy because when they're on the court, the Clippers not only learn from losing games, but they don't lose that many games. Straight up. They win a lot. They're a much better team. They have their two $40 million players on the court, and it makes all the difference. And so far, from the first 34 games, Kawhi Leonard's only played 13 games, and Paul George has played 24. So Paul George has missed 10 games, which is, not great, but it's not the end of the world. And then Kawhi Leonard's missed 21. So Kawhi Leonard missing 21 is really, I think, what Nico Batum was saying when don't expect anything from us until Christmas, because I think in that moment he knew the team was not going to be fully healthy and find a little bit of consistency and chemistry till Christmas. And Kawhi Leonard had his own quote where he said it's going to be a dark tunnel for a while, but at the end it's going to be filled with light and joy. And I just thought, listening to that the first time, I was like, okay, I hope he's right. And as the season had progressed, I'm still like, okay, I'm still waiting. That tunnel's really dark right now. But the light and joy starts with him, Kawhi Leonard himself. And seeing him play lately and seeing the way he's been playing, 29 points against Philly, a solid game against Charlotte, great game against Boston, 30-plus points against Washington. He is starting to return. And when we talked about that light and joy, well, Kawhi Leonard on the court brings a lot more of that light and joy. And the Clippers, moral of the story is, I think even though 19-15 is not a great record, it has not been a very smooth start to the season. It's been bumpy. You've had certain guys miss games, like John Wall's load managed, so he's missed 8 games. Norman Powell's missed 10 games. Luke Kennard's missed 12 games. But overall, Terrence Mann, Nico Batum, Ivica Zubac, and Reggie Jackson and Marcus Morris have been the constants that have played 30-plus games, and they have been the main reasons, in my opinion, alongside Paul George, who's been really good, but Ivica Zubac, and of late, last couple of weeks, Nico Batum has really found his shot, really found his form. Right around that Houston-Dallas road trip the Clippers went on when he started hitting threes, he had that one game against Dallas where he made like every three, and he's been sick ever since. It was a turnaround for him. But it's really been Zubac, Terrence Mann, Nico, and Marcus and Reggie that have been the availability crew for the Clippers these last 2 years. And then Paul George has played 24 games. He has only missed 10 games, which, it seems like a lot, especially at this point of the season. It's almost a third of the season that he's missed, but he has been good in those games, obviously. We've had our problems with him. I still say, Paul needs to be more aggressive. Paul is playing like a role player sometimes, and I'm very critical of Paul because I know how great he can be, but overall, you can still say he's been awesome. 23 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists at this point of the season. So the moral of the story is, Nico Batum said that now is the time to start expecting something. Basically, he said, don't expect anything until Christmas. So the way I'm taking it is, now it's time to expect. Eventually, you have to, I don't want to say reap what you sow because that's not the right term, but eventually you need to embrace the expectation. And you can't just do we're going to get it figured out. We're going to get it together. Now is the time to kick it into heavy gear. It's not just after the All-Star break. This is a point of the season that's a little bit dead. It's before the All-Star break. It's after the beginning of the season where everybody's made their first impressions. This is the tough part of the season where it's not always the most interesting, where it's about to be NFL playoffs in America. And basketball, after Christmas in January before All-Star break is kind of the most mellow part of the season. But you got to make up ground here because by the All-Star break, you've already played 50 games. But coming up, going to be talking about some questions that have been rising of late in terms of rotations and how I feel like the roster has been so far this season. Going to be talking about that coming up. Did you know that driving high is considered driving under the influence? That's right. Driving under the influence of marijuana is against the law in every state, even in states where marijuana is legal. That means driving high could get you a DUI. And if you think law enforcement officers can't tell when you're driving high, you're wrong. Your friends can tell, your coworkers can tell, even your parents can tell. Everyone can tell. So what makes you think that law enforcement officers don't know when you're driving high? Driving under the influence of marijuana can slow your response time and change how you perceive time and speed. So even if you think you're fine to drive when you're high, you're not. Because the bottom line is, if you feel different, you drive different. And driving high is driving under the influence. So remember, drive high, get a DUI. Paid for by NHTSA. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers your first listen today. Make sure to check out Locked On Sports Today, the biggest stories around the sports world in 20 minutes or less, plus instant reactions, game recaps, and Locked On's Take of the Day. Locked On Sports Today, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. All right. So, some pressing questions recently. when you take these first 34 games, there's been one thing that has really stuck out to me. I have not been pleased with Ty Lue so far this season. And I am a huge Ty Lue defender and advocate. But I do not think he's had a good season. When I did the roster breakdown before the season even began on this channel, and I talked about that the Clippers have a little bit of a logjam with John Wall, Luke Kennard, Reggie Jackson, and Norman Powell to go along with Marcus Morris, Nico Batum, Robert Covington, Terrence Mann. And then obviously Kawhi and Paul, who are wings as well. That's not even counting Amir Coffey or Brandon Boston. 11 players that now you're starting to see, now that everyone's healthy, and that's the main issue, where these guys aren't healthy, so you're constantly seeing certain guys play and certain guys not, just based on who's available. Now, in terms of Robert Covington, that hasn't really boded well for him. He has played only 20 games this season. He's missed some games with injury, but he's also had DNPs in games where Ty Lue just hasn't played him. And I think a lot of fans don't like that because even though Rocco, he hasn't been too great this season, definitely not what he was last season, but he still has a lot of redeeming qualities. The thing is, he's only shooting 31% from three and 38% from the field, and most of his shots are threes. But a big reason for that is I don't think he's taken many good threes this season. I think he's forced it a bit, but I still think that he deserves a chance to get into that rhythm and, just be on the court more and do what he does, and then he'll slowly start to get more confident into the flow of things. Because he still is a great rotator on defense. He provides a lot of size. And even though he's not the quickest thing in front of guards and really good on-ball creators, he's still a decent defender. Better than having a Reggie out there, or even better than defending in front of the ball if you compare it to like a Luke Kennard or sometimes even John Wall, who can be lazy at times on defense. So I still think Robert Covington has a place in the rotation, and I do not think that the DNPs are a good thing. And Ty Lue, again, is just put in a tough position, and I think part of that is the roster construction. I think Lawrence Frank and them, you're starting to see now that everyone's healthy, there's just not enough time for all these guys. Like, you can play 11 players, but some of these guys are really good players. They're just not going to play much. And lately, Ty Lue's been playing a 9-man rotation with just Luke Kennard, Terrence Mann, Norman Powell, and John Wall coming off the bench. Also, Nico Batum as well. So a 10-man rotation, really. But some games it's been 9 when John Wall doesn't play or whatnot. Or Norman Powell, who just came back. Before he came back, it was those other 4. I still believe in a 10-man rotation, but there is still one odd man out, which brings us the question. It's clearly a guard that needs to be sacrificed in terms of either the rotation or get traded for a backup big that they trust more than Moses Brown or Musa. Because the problem is, here's where the roster went wrong. Too many guards, in my opinion, because everyone's always saying you're going to need them throughout the season. You're going to need them throughout the season. Absolutely. But here's the thing. We are not working for a great regular season. We are working for the playoffs. And in the playoffs, rotations shrink. And you might be saying, well, certain guys are going to be used for certain things. That's true, but you have to understand the rhythm of these humans. You know what I'm saying? The mindset. It's not easy for everybody to just get off the bench in a high-stakes playoff game after they haven't been playing and just come out and be the best version of themselves. That's just very hard. That's not a normal expectation of a role player. You want your role players to be in rhythm, know, and have been doing something that they're good at all season. So when the playoffs come, they've already been through those situations in the regular season and they'll be ready for those moments. But for the Clippers, they just have a lot of cooks in the kitchen. At first, before the season, I said Marcus Morris would be the odd man out. But Marcus Morris is a starter. So that was ruled out quickly. And to be fair to him, he has started out the season really well. Then he slowly has tapered off the last month or so. So that brought me to Luke Kennard being the odd man out. But now we see very clearly that just can't happen because of Luke Kennard's, and that's what I said from the beginning. I thought that would be Ty's decision. But Luke Kennard, clearly, with his shooting ability and just his improving skills, whether it be playmaking on the ball and pick and roll, or just the way guys have been running him off the line and he's stepping into mid-ranges or making good reads of getting run off the line and finding teammates, and of course his improved defense. He just can't be out of the rotation. Luke Kennard, he's played 22 games. He started in 7. He averages 22 minutes a game. He averages 9 points a game. And right now, he is shooting 49% from 3. I said he was going to I said he was going to shoot 50% from deep this season. I'm going to stick to that because I think he will. I mean, he's 49%. He's right there. So a couple games like 3 for 5 from deep coming up will get him right there. So Luke Kennard, he can't be out of the rotation. Then you have Terrence Mann, who in the beginning of the season, he was the one that was getting minimum minutes. And I've always been, want to talk about me advocating for people, Terrence Mann is the biggest one where I've always said he needs to play. He needs to play. And Ty Lue again has started to realize that. And now it's Robert Covington. That's the odd man out. But what makes it tough is when you stagger Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, that makes it so that you have a point guard out there in ways. So the value of a John Wall or a Reggie Jackson becomes less, in my opinion. Reggie Jackson's still okay because he can play off the ball and catch and shoot well. We like that catch and shoot version of Reggie. But when you take the ball out of John Wall's hands, it really kills his effect on the game. He's only shooting 27% from 3, and he continues to just throw them up there. And that is starting to get tiresome for a lot of fans. I mean, I've been saying it for the whole season, but I still think John Wall does a lot of good things on the court. I think he's the only Clipper that really gets 2 feet in the paint consistently gets 2 feet in the paint. His downhill pressure and speed on the ball, nobody on the team has. He pushes the pace very well that no one else does in the squad. He's the best passer the Clippers have. The problem is, though, he needs to make shots so that teams respect his ability to put the ball in the basket, and that opens it up for other guys. Because right now, teams are starting to see, we're going to still just go, just like I said before the season even started, they're going to go underneath the screens and make him prove himself with his jump shot. They are going to back off when he's in transition, full speed, and make him take a pull-up mid-range. They're going to do these things, and he has to keep the defense honest by knocking some of those down. Now, threes, I don't believe that he needs to take those. I really don't. And I just think he's going to still end up doing it because I think everyone's just encouraged to take threes in this era, and I think it's really, really stupid. So I personally think that he can do without those and just attack closeouts, or when he catches the ball on a kick out, he can go into a dribble handoff with somebody, something like that. Honestly, the wide open threes aren't a big deal to me. It's the half open threes with like 10 plus seconds on the shot clock where we can get a better shot that I have a problem with. But that being said, I do believe John Wall still has a place in this team, but it makes it hard when you see how well Luke Kennard has done in the second unit handling the ball. And as I said, when you stagger Kawhi and Paul, you don't really need another ball handler out there. You can do with just one real, Reggie or John. And that's what makes it a tough decision. So what's the solution? What should the Clippers do going forward? What should their approach be? Going to be talking about that to end it out coming up. Christmas Day, we got a full slate of games in the NBA, Philadelphia and New York. And right now the spread is minus 108 for Philly, minus 2.5 for the points. The Lakers are plus 8 going into Dallas. I would take the Mavericks in that bet, because no Anthony Davis. And then the game of the day at 5:10 Eastern Time, 2:10 Pacific, Milwaukee and Boston, a rematch of the second round. The Celtics are at -5, Bucks +5. You can place your bets on any of those games, and where you can do that is betonline.net. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football to college bowl season to basketball. We've got it all on betonline.net. If you love sports podcasts, you can even find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, so here's my practical advice for the Clippers. Ty Lue has not had a good start to the season, even though I detailed all the reasons why it's tough for him in the last segment. He hasn't been good for this simple reason. He has this small guard conviction. I can't stand it, really. I'm just looking at the Celtics net series from last season, and you saw that Seth Curry and Kyrie Irving together, or Seth Curry and Patty Mills together, at times all three of them together was getting cooked. They can target any of those guys in the pick and roll. They're not big bodies. When they're rotating around the basket, they are nothing. They are nothing for these rollers. And they can get taken advantage of on the offensive glass. The Clippers, before Kawhi Leonard was playing, really struggled with their small ball units before they started playing like a Moses Brown or a Moussa Diabate. And on top of that, they'd play small guards in the backcourt with Nico Batum playing center. Unacceptable and just not smart. I think Ty Lue, again, is going for the offense-first approach, and he still thinks he can switch those guys because it's a guard-heavy, face-up-heavy league now, but you're still just giving up stuff because none of the three, like Norman Powell, Luke Kennard, and John Wall will sometimes be on the court together, and neither of those three are considered good defenders. They're okay. So you can't have three okay defenders out there that are 6'4" and under. It's just not it. So I heard all offseason, and Jerry West talked about it in my sit-down. You can find that on my channel. When I went and listened to him, and he said we have so many wing players. You know, people on Twitter were even calling us wing stop as a joke to coin our team with all the wings that we have. But it's been guard stop a lot of times. It's been a lot of smaller guards. I am only John Wall and Luke Kennard, or John Wall and Norman Powell should be two guards, 6'4" and under out there at the same time. I don't think Reggie and Kennard should play together because they're too small together. I really just don't believe in it. Unless it's a really bad team the Clippers are playing. I don't believe in Reggie and John out there at all for scheme purposes as well as defensive. And then Reggie and Norman is okay, honestly. I think it's passable. But the point is, Ty Lue's had too many lineups where he plays the small guards, too many games where he just sits. There's no Amir Coffey, no Robert Covington for guards. And I get it. You don't want to sit Norman Powell because he's really good. You don't want to sit John Wall because he's John Wall. You don't want to sit Reggie because for whatever reason, Ty Lue just he's so loyal to Reggie. And that's another issue that I had to bring up. His Reggie conviction has held this team back in the first 34 games. I'm being dead serious. It's really held the team back. I love Reggie Jackson. I will continue to say that. I love Reggie Jackson. He takes very tough shots that he doesn't need to take, especially when we have Kawhi and Paul out there. He dilly-dallies too much on the ball. He dribbles way too much, which is the same as dilly-dallying too much on the ball. His shot selection is very questionable, and when he doesn't hit shots, he does not play very hard defense, and already, as is, he's not a good defender, really. So, to have him as your starting point guard is a lot, and especially the fact that what I love about him, though, is he's available so often, even though he's missed a couple of games recently. He's played 31 games out of 34. Right now, he's playing 29 minutes a game, averaging 12 points and 4 assists, but his shooting splits 41% from the field, 35% from three. Not good in either category. I mean, 35% from three is okay, but for the standard that we've seen Reggie Jackson shoot at in the last couple of years, it's not very good. And the reason why is because he makes life too tough for himself. He takes tough shots. He takes shots he doesn't need to take, but Kawhi Leonard and Paul George being back really helps him. That being said, though, I said in the last episode after the Sixers game, I honestly think there's a shot that Ty Lue should just do this. Play Reggie Jackson the first 5 minutes or 6 minutes of each half, and then straight up just don't play him again unless he's really playing well. Luke Kennard has shown that he can handle the ball and pick and roll a little bit, because if he hits a screen set for him and he turns that corner nicely, your big man better be stepping up. You can't play drop coverage on Luke Kennard. You better step up and blitz him or hedge him hard, which will create 4-on-3s just like that because he has a threat to shoot the ball. Reggie Jackson also has that threat. Teams usually drop with him, and he does a good job of hitting those floaters and stuff. But I don't know. I'm just kind of when Kawhi and Paul George don't play, Reggie Jackson ends up getting like the best defender on the other team, and that makes it really hard. So again, I think Luke Kennard, Norman Powell even can handle the ball a little bit in pick and roll. Even Terrence Mann at times. And especially when you stagger Kawhi and Paul, it makes it a lot easier. So, again, going forward, the approach needs to be this. Now it's time to put up or shut up. The Clippers need to climb in the standings now. Their players are fully healthy. They need to stop with the small guard stuff. Reggie needs to play less, and even Senior needs to play less. And they need to lean into more Kennard, more Terrence, and Norman Powell. Because those three guys, and I know Nico Batum's going to play, and also a little bit more Robert Covington. Because I know that the small ball looks a lot better with Kawhi. You can live without always playing a backup big to Zubats with Kawhi and Paul George out there in the small ball, because then you have Paul George, Kawhi, Rocco, potentially if you want to use him, Amir, Terrence, Nico, 5 of them guys who are like 6'6" and over with long arms. So that's great. But I just don't want to see the guards in that small ball much anymore. Play the wings. Lean into the identity of this team, and the strength of it was we have a lot of wing players. That's my thing. So overall, to recap the episode, Nico Batum and Kawhi Leonard seem right. We made it out okay because the strength of the West is so topsy-turvy this season that we are right there. Right now, the Denver Nuggets are first in the West, and I actually consider them a great team. I said before the season they were going to be right up there. If you listen to my personal channel, Dime Dropper, I said they would be the 3 seed, and I think they're one of the legitimate threats to win the championship with Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. back. Nikola Jokic is having another amazing, amazing season. And right now they're 20-11, tied with Memphis. Memphis is also off to a really good start to the season, even without Jaren Jackson Jr. for a large portion. He's back now, and they're really doing well. And even Desmond Bane has missed games, and they're still trudging on. They just play really hard in the regular season, and they're very motivated and young. And then New Orleans has just been spectacular. But I think the Clippers can surpass these teams. I really do. And it's just all about one game at a time. As I said, it's not, even though I'm looking at the standings for this episode, it's not so serious where you need to look at the standings and prey on teams losing here and there right now. I think what's important right now is the Clippers gaining rhythm and just winning one game at a time, and you will see those standings change, I promise. The fact that the Clippers are 5th seed and they've been, I think, like a C+ this season shows how there it still is, how the championship opportunity is still there. I have never said it's over. I just said it would be improbable, in my opinion, that they still win it and are healthy and all that. But guess what? It's sports, and anything can happen. Merry Christmas to you all. Thank you so much for listening. Remember to comment on today's pinned question. What do you think of Kawhi and Nico's quotes and how they aged? Kawhi Leonard, it's all about you, baby. Stay healthy. That light and joy is coming to this Clipper fan and many other Clipper fans. Of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, and of course, subscribe to Locked On Clippers and follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Dime Dropper Pod. And remember the age-old proverb, go Clippers.